Hello, everybody. It is Season 5, Episode 14 of the Ballcard Show, the sports podcast.
For the Sports Collector.
I'm Jason Otero.
I'm Gary LeMaster.
And we've had a week on the podcast.
It's been a week.
We've had a week on the podcast.
You've had a week in general. I have too, but it's been a completely different one. My daughter got married over the weekend.
Yes.
And your weekend looked like this. Thursday night, Whatnot Show by yourself.
Yeah.
After the Whatnot Show,
Yes.
shipping by yourself till about 1 a.m.
Yep.
Because we have made the commitment that we're going to get everything shipped out the next day.
Yep.
Then that next day on Friday, driving 2.5 hours north for Elizabeth's wedding.
Yep.
And then leaving and driving 2.5 hours back
Yep.
to get up at 6:30 a.m. to go to Xenia on Saturday to do a show by yourself.
Oh, yeah, and Mother's Day.
And Mother's Day on Sunday.
And now my mother-in-law are all within a half hour, so it's like we can see everybody, which is great. But so yeah, it's been a busy week.
Yeah, you had yourself a week. I did too, but it was different kind of busy. So mine wasn't as much travel; it was just nonstop insanity. But hey, Liz, I know you're watching this. You're Alex problem now.
Yeah, congrats, Liz. We got a lot to get into this week, but first off, let's just say thank you to everybody that's been engaging with video content. I know it sounds like a broken record at this point, but we still are surprised that people are engaging with everything. Again, we did this for several years without any expectation of outside of a few friends and people locally listening to the pod. And since we dropped video like this last week, we've really seen some stuff pop off.
Yeah.
And we've got trolls. We finally have earned the right to have some trolls, which is a sign that, there's a little bit of growth taking place. So,
well, I mean, we basically we found out yesterday that
oh boy,
it doesn't matter whether you're just a sports podcast reporting on something that happened in the hobby. If it's about somebody that has a cult-like following, you're gonna
find out.
Catch it. You're gonna find out quick. And 220,000 views and about 900 comments later, we found out.
Yeah. We just covered, like we always have, whenever there is a scandal, a lawsuit. We've done it with the lawsuits between Panini and Topps. This time, Backyard Breaks was back in the news because of the lawsuit over the $15,000 in packages. We have since verified through a reliable source that Backyard has taken care of that person. It's just a shame that it took a lawsuit for that to happen.
Yeah.
So that's where that is, but we appreciate it. We're never going to stop talking about relevant things in the hobby.
Nope. And it's not an attack of anybody specific. If something happens that is newsworthy in the hobby, and I would say that one of the largest, if not the largest group breakers on the planet gets sued for not following through on delivering packages, that's newsworthy. If somebody else does that, we will talk about that too.
But they definitely have a cult-like following.
Oh gosh,
my favorite was a guy arguing with me. His profile name was either like Johnny or Jimmy, but it was Johnny Slots.
Yeah,
it's just slot videos. I'm like, they love you, bud. They are, and for the gambler, that's no surprise to us that they are really drawn to that because they're used to gambling and either winning or losing everything. At least with this, you get something, maybe, right?
Yeah.
So keep doing what you're doing, guys. Your buddies over at Backyard love you.
And guys that are trolling us, we appreciate you feeding the algorithm. It helps us a ton, so keep it coming.
Yep. I'm sure they're not going to stop anytime soon. Nope. Hobby news. Let's roll into some stuff that's going on this week. We did see the announcement of Topps licensed football releases, or at least getting the printing press running, will be April of 2026. So we can't wait for that. That's going to be awesome.
Less than a year.
Really looking forward to those products. In the meantime, we are going to see so many products
from Panini.
Printing.
Yes, so many, and they're going to print so much of it. I don't think it'll matter on the numbered stuff and the case hit stuff, although there will be more case hits because they'll be printing more cases. Yeah. And I think that we will see more case hits put into every case. That'll be
Upper East Side town hit.
5 or 6 different types of case hits in every case.
Southwest of the city.
So keep all that in mind as you're ripping product and looking for stuff to grab that, it's going to get a little saturated because Panini's going to try to milk every last dime they can.
As they should.
But that's the right business move for them. Just understand what it's doing to the overall market as you're participating in it.
Yep, I would agree. For some people, they have loved the licensed Panini products, the case hits and all that. Some people might put away a few sealed boxes. But one thing that we can point to that there's a lot of data on is these Uptowns, which we've mentioned we think they would be falling. They have been. Yesterday, I was talking with a viewer on live. They hit a Malik Neighbors Uptown. At one point, that was a $300 card. In the last week, there were 4 comps. The last 4 comps I found, there was a couple over 200, but there were several comps.
Like 125, 130?
Not
right?
quite that, about 150 to 2.
Okay.
So, I mean, it's already 35 to 40% down from release. So just be careful with that. People have asked a lot about what they should do with the Uptowns. I'm of the opinion, if you see a product descending, unless you're planning on holding it for several years, get your money out while you can on the sale. If you're not attached to the card, if you love the card, keep it. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, if the goal is to get money out of it, though, always sell on the way up. Don't try to sell on the way down. Yeah, if you can avoid it.
But we may be descending quickly, so you're going to have to make
do what
choice.
you can do. Yeah, yep. I know that if you bring a Uptown to me, I'm not paying anywhere near what most people paying for case hits. Like,
what do you mean? You don't pay 95% on everything?
Yeah, that was another.
All you need is 5% margin on your cards.
It's the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
That's the ethical way to do it. You pay 95%, and then when I thought about this, I was like, isn't it great that car dealerships do that too?
Yeah,
the trade-in value is 95% of the sales value, and when you sell a house, isn't it great how nobody makes offers under what you're asking for?
Yeah,
they come in at 95% or higher on your home. And isn't it cool how whenever you go into a collectible shop of any kind to sell a product that people are going to resell,
they're like, here's 100%.
Here's, you know what? I'm feeling like the right thing to do here is to give you 100% of what the value is. So keep doing what you're doing out there, people. Keeping that market propped up. But yeah, there were some interesting takes on that for sure. Let's give an update. So we broke down what the red foil rookie rewards program was for Fanatics. We both like the idea of, especially in a product like Bowman, hitting a rookie and being rewarded for hanging on to them, or kind of, it's a way of speculating a little bit without having to go like real deep into high value per card prospects.
Yeah.
We did some math on it, like 15 years to hold out on a card that might be to up to $1,000 max. May not be worth it for many, but we have a bigger issue that we need to talk about. And it's about the Bowman product.
Yeah.
And it's the first time so far from what we've seen, which it could be bad case or a bad video we watch, but from what we're hearing for the first time since we've started recording the podcast, this may not be a rip and flip product like it was for people that sell low end.
For years and years and years. And you guys have heard me say, if you're a longtime listener to the podcast, you've heard me say that if you know what you're doing, it's almost impossible to lose money ripping cases of Bowman blasters.
Caveat, because we're going to have new listeners this week. That does not mean that you instantly make money on hits.
Correct.
What we're saying is if you have the vehicle to sell the nice stuff and move through the base and list it, anything that's worth a couple bucks, you can get your money back.
Yeah.
We're not saying you rip it and your hits are always going to pay for it.
Right. And that is what I meant when I said, and I'm glad Jason clarified it. That's why I said if you know what you're doing, if you do. I will say this. I have not ripped a full case of this yet. I still will. I still haven't bought the case yet. I have talked to at least 5 people scattered around the country who have ripped at least 1, if not 2 or 3 cases of blasters.
Right.
In the past, on average, a blaster case had around 8 autos. I've seen some blaster cases with 6. I've seen some with 10, but usually it's right around 8. Usually somewhere in the vicinity of 20 to 25 color cards. What I have seen so far, and in this limited bit that I ripped like 13 or 14 blasters. It's like 4 autos a case now and like 6 or 7 colored cards per case. In the 14 blasters that I ripped, I pulled 2 of the red rookie logo redemptions. One was a really good one. One was I hit a Roki Sasaki and or Elvis Martinez.
What are people offering on the Sasaki right now?
The Sasaki's doing around $70 to $80.
Okay.
I think that his market is more for the next 2 to 3 years for that card, where he might be a $300 redemption, because I don't think he's winning Rookie of the Year this year, unless something drastically changes. So if the product has been nerfed as hard as it seems like it has been nerfed, everything I have said about Bowman in the past may not apply anymore, even if you know what you're doing. Because if you're only hitting 4 autos in a box, one of them better be really good to pull off what I've always done in the past.
And we do take it seriously. Like if we're giving any type of advice or recommendation and we see something changing or we see we're wrong, we're going to say it. So we're looking at the camera right now saying the things we've said about Bowman in the past, according to what we are seeing right now, are not exactly the same.
Yeah.
We are wrong when we say that this is a product that it appears this year you could open a retail, and if you can move low end and high end stuff, you come out even on that. We're not saying that anymore. Okay.
Yeah.
So after having a glance at this, if we're wrong, we'll call our own foul here. I think we're wrong about that. We could see a lot more product, but typically when you're seeing several cases around the country, and then I'm even seeing content. Now, I don't know how much of this content is people new to Bowman,
right?
You know, that go and get, they go buy a jumbo hobby and they're expecting something and then they get 5 pictures, right? So I don't know how much of that is playing into it, but there is even across the hobby discussion, kind of a question of the quality of the hits that are coming out. Now, here's the question I have for you, Gary.
Yeah.
If that is true, again, now we're kind of, you know, put on your tinfoil hat a little bit.
Okay.
You know? That's all we do. Remember, that's all we do is critique. Remember, we're just very negative. So put it on, get really negative with me for a second. Is it possible that what Fanatics is doing as they create these chases that they've inserted into products, like obviously the MLB debut patch is huge, but now we're talking about the other patches that they're bringing in. Was it All-Star?
Oh, the MVP and Cy Young, the award winners,
right?
Yeah.
They announced these buyback programs for even like WWE Topps Chrome.
Yep.
Now we have this red foil redemption. Are they beginning to bake into the value of the product these chases that are not just the card itself? And if that is happening, is this something that we're going to see in the future where, you know, Bowman's a product where you're really going after the red rookies, not the color and the autos? You know, like, are we going to see more of that with these other products?
Here's the only place where I think that logic breaks down. Fanatics is well aware of the value of Bowman autos, especially the top guys.
Yes. It's not their worst product.
If they want to do that with like the red logo redemptions, then the redemptions need to be worth way more than they're making them worth.
Okay.
The first month of release of Bowman, an almost no name guy, you hit a true red auto, you're getting $2,000 for it.
Yeah.
As a no name, like somebody that's nobody, you're getting $2,000 for it.
Hard to hit.
Yeah, hard to hit. But at the end of the day, like if the thought process they have is, well, these red stamps are going to drive the product, they have to make the redemptions worth more.
Is there a universe, I think I probably sound like a noob here, where they begin to spend less on autographs by doing stuff like this?
The product will tank. They'll lose sales. Like the only thing that drives Bowman is these are your first
the checklist autos.
Yeah, that's what drives Bowman.
So
always has, always will.
May just be a little more of a stinker product this year and have nothing to do with this conspiracy
I think they just
theories.
nerfed it. They're printing more of it and they nerfed it. So, yeah.
You're still going to open a blaster though?
A case? Yeah, probably.
I'll open a few. I don't think I'm going to do a whole case.
Yeah, I'll do a case just because I always have. And at the end of the day, if I hit enough even base, like Jesus Mate base chromes are doing $15 right now.
Yep.
So like, I'll probably still be able to at least get close to my money back because I know how to do it.
Yeah.
If I get 75% of my money back on a case and I had fun ripping it, I'm okay there.
Yeah. I'll let you dive a little further into this, but we've been doing a little bit of digging. Some people mentioned it in a live, so did a little more research. I did not see as many published pieces on this, so I'm just going to say that for what it is. When I was digging a little bit into Reddit, I saw more about it.
But this was the director of product development.
The director of product development.
Okay.
So, yeah, I'll let you go ahead and take away.
So Jason had this in our notes, and I started trying to find what he was talking about, and I couldn't find it anywhere. I'm like, what are you talking? He went and dug and found it. So Lucas Kinzer is the director of product development at Panini, and he did an interview, and it looks like we are getting, that's newsman.
You need some readers? Hold it a little further away.
WNBA releases on higher end products, with the exception of one thing, for 2025. Donruss basketball 2025 WNBA, I believe, is May 21st.
They're doing some type of debut auto on those.
Yeah, first day autos.
First day autos.
But then we are also getting impeccable WNBA with on-card autos. And the one that's really going to be interesting to me, and I think the product will go absolutely insane,
nuts,
is the Panini 1-in-1, the basketball product. WNBA is going to have WNBA kabooms, which will be the first WNBA kabooms. And I think that the Caitlin Clark and Paige Beckers and Cameron Brinks, those things are going to go insane.
Well, this is what was smart. So they decided they're going to release this. They know that they're not getting the rookie year, but they're holding back on the hits everybody's wanting and basically introducing that second year in with the next rookie class.
Yeah, but you're going to have some good rookie chases this year.
Sure.
Paige Beckers will be a huge chase this year. Yeah.
It's going to be a very expensive product with a handful of names that pay.
And remember, the really important thing here, WNBA viewership went up like 20x last year.
Yep.
And then this year they went, you know what? We're not stupid. The Indiana Fever, every WNBA team plays 49 games. 47 of the Indiana Fever's games are the nationally televised games. They're putting Caitlin Clark front and center every single televised game for the most part, which means that audience is even going to grow and the demand for her stuff is going to continue to grow.
Yeah. I cannot wait to see the price introduction on that 1-on-1.
I bet it drops at $500.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Huh, I was expecting a little north of that.
It's usually the NBA 1-on-1 retail is like $449.
Is that
usually
a one card SKU?
It's 2 cards.
2 cards.
Yeah, you get 2 cards.
Both encased? I know there's one encased.
I believe it is 1 encased, 1 top loaded. I think maybe I'm wrong.
What do you think? Let's play a little bit of a game. Where do you think that first Caitlin Clark kaboom sells? Like, what's the price point?
$3,000.
I was gonna say 5.
Maybe. I think it's probably like 3-ish though.
I think you're wrong by a lot.
Okay. You think it's gonna more than double Jaden Daniels?
Yes.
Okay.
I think they're introducing a higher end to this product, and
I mean, I hope you're right because it unlike a lot of people,
that'd be great for the hobby. Yeah.
While I think wax prices need to come down, singles prices going up is great for everything.
Yep.
Singles prices going up is great for everything.
Yep, you're going to hurt some people's brains now. Be careful with that. All right, Whatnot tonight, 7 o'clock. If you joined us last week, thank you. It was solo. Well, I can't say solo. My daughter, Sydney,
Sid was a rock star,
She did an awesome job helping to handle everything after it was there. Got it shipped out right away. We picked up a lot of new cool stuff. We just went through that. Some really fun slabs.
Yep.
We picked up a lot of low-numbered stuff, some big names.
There's a Space Jam set, the first original Space Jam set Jordan card.
PSA slab.
PSA slab, so.
Yeah, we have a lot of good stuff in there. And then what was the jersey? The other jersey we have.
Rich Gannon.
Rich Gannon. Is it JSA?
It's either JSA or Beckett.
But asserted Rich Gannon jersey as a buyer's giveaway. We'll also, as always, have probably around 20, 25 giveaways in the stream. We've been asking for feedback so far. You all have really enjoyed the mix of giveaways we had. There's usually a few packs in there, everything else. But come hang out.
If you jump into a lot of streams that do giveaways, you're going to see that I think, especially since we're not like running $300,000 and $400,000 and $500,000 and $10,000 cards in our streams, the level of giveaways that we have is top notch.
Those of you that just watch and hang out and like to chat and you don't want to buy anything on Whatnot, that is more than welcome.
Yeah, come hang out with us.
And we'll be there usually for 2 to 3 hours, and then we try to get all the shipping done that night and have it out to you the next morning.
Yep.
So be sure to take advantage of that. There's a QR code right now below me. Scan that and get set up in there. Value box. You ready?
I'm ready. Let's go.
So with the dialogue that we've been getting, and with having a couple of videos pop off in the last week with a lot more traffic, we've seen a lot of differing opinions, strong opinions about how people should buy cards, where they should be selling them, the percentages that people should be at, what is fair, what is criminally unfair for people in the hobby. And I think the thing that it pointed out to all of us is that there are a lot of different profiles, if you will, within the hobby. There are people looking for very different things, but all of them are depending on one another. All of them need the other one for it to make sense in the hobby. But I thought we would just kind of break down the different kind of profiles, roles, types of people within the hobby to understand what they might be needing or where their perspective might be, which when we have that kind of perspective, it makes a lot more sense. There are a lot of people that say they are dealers, but they're really just collectors that want to sell some of their collection. There are people that say they only collect, but they're really just trying to flip everything. There are people that only enjoy that gambling aspect and they only do repacks. They don't want to dive in and learn a bunch. They just want to know, hey, if I put $100 towards this repack product, what will I get out? So we kind of want to walk through the different things that people might be looking for. And then when you're in a transaction, a deal negotiation at a table, wherever online, it might give you a little perspective that helps you to see where they're coming from and to get a better.
Yeah, if you can identify the profile of the person you're talking to, everything becomes a lot easier because in any kind of, say, one of the, you hear Jason and I talk about sales a lot because we both have a background in it. If you can identify the profile of the person that you're working with, you can then put yourself in their shoes and you can approach the negotiation from a standpoint of what is going to help this person the most. Because at the end of the day, if you're able to help the person across the table from you, you're going to end up with a really good transaction for both of you. One of the things that was so rewarding for me, I did a response video to a couple of the comments we had on a video this week, and multiple people from around the country that have dealt with me at shows that I didn't even know followed us on socials jumped in and said, hey, you helped me with this. You helped me understand this or this, and it made me a better buyer and seller. Like, that's really rewarding. So that's what we want to try to do here is help you.
Yeah, one of the things that happens when we're set up, and if you've been to shows with us there, you've noticed it, we have a buyer's line, and at times that'll get a little bit bigger if we're looking at stuff, if it's a busy show. And we do have people that get tired of waiting and they take their case and walk down to the next table. The reason for that is if somebody does not understand how to comp, what the value is, we're certainly not going to offer it our margin without them having an understanding of that. So sometimes we're literally educating people. Hey, this is Card Ladder. Here's how we comp a card. Here's the last 3 sales. What do you think the value is? Okay, at this table, we pay this percentage. Does that percentage make you uncomfortable? If it does, it's okay. Blah, blah, blah. Here on a calculator is the percentage of the value that you just said the card's at. Do you want to make a deal? Some people are impatient with that, but we think it's important for people to actually understand what they're doing. So we try to be a resource in that way.
And to be very transparent. Like, we pay the percentages we pay, but we don't make it seem like we're paying more than we are. Like, we don't go find the lowest comp we can and then offer a higher percentage on that low. Like, we want to be really transparent and help people understand.
And we have people come up to our table, and by understanding these different profiles of people in the hobby, we understand where they're coming from. We can kind of begin to get a feel. Okay, is this person just shopping for the lowest comp they can find and offering a percentage of that? Because that won't be beneficial to me if I'm selling, right? Is this person a collector? Is this a card they've been looking for, right? So we're going to dive into that a little bit. There was something else I was going to say, but I forgot already. So let's just jump in. So the first profile we want to talk about is just the pure collector.
Yep.
Pure collector. This person just buys cards. They go to shows. They shop online. All they want to do is grow their collection.
Yep.
They could care less if it's profitable 10 to 15 years from now. They just want to buy what they like and appreciate it.
And don't get confused and think because they're a pure collector that they will just overpay for whatever you have. A lot of pure collectors are aware of the market and they don't want to be taken advantage of. But they also know that if you have a really rare card that they want, they may not see it again. So you kind of have a little more leverage.
Yeah. Case in point, the Urlacher finally sold.
Oh, nice.
It did. The 2000 playoff contenders, rookie ticket auto of Urlacher. It was in a PSA 8. Comps were anywhere from $78 to like 200-ish. Ended up selling it for, the last comp was $80. The card sold for $180.
Yeah.
The reason for that is a card that people just don't come across. They've been looking for it. They understood where the comps were. We talked through the comps. I was like, I can come down a little bit on my sticker, but I put this in the showcase because it's hard to find, and I know that he has a PC base. And the buyer said, I am the PC base. This is a card that I want. If you work with me a little bit, here's where we'll land on that. After acknowledging there was a lower comp, there was a comp below that one. It was one of those cards. To a true collector, that matters. I can't tell you how many people complained about my price in the showcase beforehand. You saw some of it because they wanted to buy it with margin. They can't comprehend if I can't buy this with margin, but that's not a card for that. In the same regard, we run into people that are expecting that top dollar, higher percentage on what they have. And if we're not that, I did it this last weekend at the Xenia show. Somebody came up to me with case hits, nice stuff in there. I said, hey, I typically don't go over 80% on anything. It would have to be a bigger card for that. So are you probably targeting, because I was getting a feel, are you targeting more of the 90% to 100%? He said, yeah, that's where I have to be. I said, no problem with the kind of stuff you have. There's a table right up here. Do you see those guys? I sent them right over there. I said, tell them Jason sent you. And they made a deal and they came back and thanked me for it. It's okay. I'm happy for them because those guys have somebody in the pipeline that will pay 5 or 10% over where they get it. So is what it is. But the pure collector, they're just looking for what they want.
Yeah. And you can usually identify a pure collector in a couple of ways. One, they're going to ask, do you have X, Y, Z? Yep. And it's not going to be, do you have case hits? It's going to be, do you have Jose Ramirez rookie autos?
That guy.
Do you have
Nolan Arenado guy? Remember him? He was in the chat yesterday.
Pete Alonso. There's a Pete Alonso super collector that's in Central Ohio.
Max Crosby.
Max Crosby. Like, they're going to ask specifically, do you have these guys? The second way you'll know is if they have stuff that they're trying to sell, they're going to sit it down and they're going to go, hey, all the stuff over here is my PC. And if you glance through it and it's one or two guys, chances are this is a collector.
Pure collectors are a little bit more likely to sell you at a good margin the stuff that they're not concerned with.
Yes.
The reason for that is there's really only a handful of players that they care about.
They don't care.
And they would love to take 70, 75% and sell all this other stuff at once because they want to walk the showroom floor and see what else is out there and have cash in their pocket.
Yep.
There's nothing wrong with that. They're understanding of that. But the collector is somebody that will pay closer to 100% of value. They're educated on that player's market typically. They understand. So if you're one of the ones marking over comps, be prepared for them to say, hey, I'm pretty familiar with this market, probably more familiar with this player's market than you are, and here's where these have been. Be reasonable with them. They're likely to pay up on fair value for the card. They're also likely to sell with a little bit more margin most times to focus on that PC. But flipping is not the game that they're in.
No.
And trying to push them in that direction won't work. And trying to buy from their collection that they're not interested in selling it will really hurt you.
Yes, it's impossible.
All right, what do we got next? The non-collector flipper. I'll let you go on that.
So I preface this by saying that there is a huge difference between a non-collector flipper and a dealer. Okay? And we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about dealers next. But the non-collector flipper, profile-wise, is this. For the most part, it's not 100%. Usually younger. Sometimes some of these kids are sharks, man. Like 8, 9
no doubt about it. They're
walk
sharks.
Around with 30 grand in cash and 100 grand in cards and working you over.
And they'll find the lowest comp faster than you can find any comps.
Yes. Usually younger. A lot of these folks came recently into the hobby, and a lot of them used to be in the sneaker world before the sneaker world just collapsed.
NFT world.
Yeah. So
crypto world.
You're gonna see a couple of the common questions that you're gonna get from these guys. One, they're usually looking for case hits. That's their main thing they're looking for. The next thing would be really big rookie autos, things like that. And then the last thing they're going to ask a lot of times is, if I make a stack of stuff, can we get to 80% or 75% or whatever the number is? My answer to that is always, if it's out of the value box, sure. Mm-hmm. If it's out of my showcases, depends on what the things you're pulling.
I can work with you some things more than others.
Yeah.
That's the truth.
Yeah.
We're not in the same, you're not at the exact same percentage on every purchase. There's a negotiation going on.
Yeah. So, but that non-collector flipper, a few things you want to keep in mind from their perspective when you're trying to make a deal. The only thing that they are concerned about is, can I make money on this purchase?
Value and liquidity.
Yes, that's right? The only thing that they're concerned about. Can I make money? If I buy this from you, can I turn around and sell it to somebody else quickly and make money on it? Now, don't get me wrong. There are plenty of people that I sell to that fall into that category. They just got to buy the stuff that I'm comfortable selling at the numbers that they're at. A lot of times I don't make deals with people like that because they want the nicest stuff I have at the lowest percentage they can possibly get it at based off the lowest comp they can find.
Well, and yeah, they'll say, I'm at 85%. I thought you said that you would be willing to do, but it's after trying to knock down the value as much as possible and wear you down over time. And I can appreciate the hustle. If I can make money and they can make money, and we're both probably a little bit uncomfortable, but realize that, this is probably the meeting point for both of us.
Yeah.
That's not a loss.
Yeah.
Now, like you said, if it's all case hits, well, 80% is going to be it's going to be tough for me to sell it there because.
Yeah. So the other thing that's really important here that's a differentiator, the non-collector flipper, rarely, if ever, and I'm going to go to like 99%, they try their very best to not take on any of the overhead that an actual dealer has.
Yeah.
They do not set up at shows. They do not pay for hotels. They come in.
They're there early while you're setting up.
Yes.
And they bring a ton of cards with them too.
Yep. And a ton of cash. But at the end of the day, that's kind of the profile. Younger, they're trying to buy something that they can move quickly. A lot of times at the same show, like they'll buy something from you, walk 3 tables down and sell it to that guy. And they paid $100. They sell it for 110. That guy puts it in his showcase at the same price that you had it at. And they're happy with that because they did it in 5 minutes. Yeah. Non-collector flippers also tend to not pay very close attention to who they're talking to. They don't care about you. I can't tell you how many times somebody buys a card from my table with the intent of flipping it, and 30 minutes later they come back and try to sell it to me.
It's a fun moment, though.
Yeah, and I go, you just bought this from me a half an hour ago. Oh. I mean, well, do you want it back? Yeah, at less than I sold it to you for. Sure. Absolutely. Like, what are we doing here? So that's the non-collector flipper. Understand what their mentality is. If you know what that mentality is and you can sell them things that help them and help you, awesome. Don't let them frustrate you, though. It's not worth getting frustrated over. Just, hey, it may not be the right fit.
Yep. Dealer will both jump in on this one.
And we talk about this a lot, so we won't spend a ton of time
here. Right. Dealer, there are many different types of dealers. I think we should start with that. There are many different people. I think the perspective that we're giving is if you were at a show. So that's kind of our point of reference. That's like the easiest way to unpack it. But I think something that's really important to understand, the difference between somebody just flipping cards and a dealer is the time commitment. I think preparing for the show, the financial commitment, setting up at the show. It's not that the table fees are crazy. I mean, you go to some bigger shows, you're in, you can be in a chunk of change, but most of even the larger regional shows, guys are spending $100 to $200 for a table. It's not like it's
we're
insane,
at Ship Shawana in 2 weeks.
Sure.
And by the time you figure in hotels, table fees, food, travel, we'll be in that show between the two of us for $1,000.
Yep.
So before we sell a thing, it's cost us $1,000 to be there.
That's actual money.
Yeah. And that doesn't count our time or anything else. It's just cost us $1,000 to be there. So, and like Jason said, there's a difference between in my mind, there's a difference between a dealer and an LCS. We're not even going to talk about LCSs today. But a dealer is somebody who is regularly setting up at shows. And in general, this is at a minimum a portion of how they pay their bills, if not how they pay their bills completely. Understanding that perspective when you're going up to sell to a dealer will help you understand where they're coming from. And it'll help you decide whether it's even worth going up and talking to those people. Yeah. You know what I mean?
And there are different business models for every dealer. There are dealers that buy only case hits at 90%, and they have repackers they can count on to buy it close to 100 because their boss is going to pay them 105 or 110% of value on stuff because they get to mark up the repack product. There are dealers that have been content setting up the same stuff they've had for the last 15 years because they collected for 30 years before that. And they're just selling this off and hanging out. There are dealers that are actively trying to grow their business. I think Gary and I would fall into that category. And so some filters that we have is not only do I have the right stuff that's going to move through this show, but let's say what a lot of people don't understand is as soon as you and I have, let's say a repacker or somebody comes through in the first 2 hours and our showcases get drilled. We are so excited to shove that wad of cash into our bag or our cash box. But within 10 seconds, what's the first thing that we're thinking?
have to restock.
How am I going to restock?
Yeah.
I have to buy aggressively. We're thinking about the rest of that show. We're thinking about the show the next week.
And the week after that, and the week after that, when you do it every week.
Right. And if we don't buy with enough margin, we're going to lose money really quickly by the time we consider expenses, the market, all this stuff. So the dealer has 100 things running around. You, as somebody watching the pod, myself and Gary have all experienced the grumpy dealer that's overwhelmed because of what's happening.
Yeah.
They put something out and 5 new comps have hit on that card that are 30% lower, and they did spend more money than you expected.
I've been that grumpy dealer.
It happens.
Yeah, I've been that grumpy dealer.
But the dealer's perspective is not just, hey, I got to have the right stuff out, but I have to keep getting it out there. So just as much as we're thinking about selling, we're also thinking about buying. Dealers have a perspective of, hey, is this person wasting time? Because I have 5 people at the table that need my attention and have questions that want to build lots. I have a showcase that's covered up by a kid who's really excited about getting into the hobby, and they want me to take a look at their dollar box of cards. And the right thing for me to do is to be respectful of them. But how do I scoot this thing off to the side because somebody is looking at the showcase here that wants to make some purchases? So there's a lot happening at once. Dealers need to not be jerks, right? Gary and I have both been accused of being too direct. Gary's naturally gifted in that way. I can get that way if I feel like time is being wasted or money is being lost.
Yeah.
Those things will get me going in that direction right away. But a dealer's perspective is not only, I'm going to sell this for as much as I can that the market will justify, but I also need to buy these things for as cheap as I can that the market will justify and that the seller will be okay with. And you have to do that in a way where you want people repeatedly coming up to you. There are people that don't walk up to our table to sell stuff, and we understand it, and we respect them, and we're on good terms with them. But they understand we are not the 90%, 95% people probably ever. At some point when we get into really big cards, we may consider something like that, but we probably already have a buyer in mind for that card. So just a perspective of dealers. I know this is kind of scattershot, but we want you to just realize how many different people are buying and selling even in a given show.
Types of people, yeah.
Yes. I love the next one. I just called the vintage only old stuff. Vintage only old timer is what I call this.
These are the grumpiest people at shows.
Typically, yes.
Yes, they are the grumpiest people at shows because they know they're coming to a show. And this applies to the dealers too that fall into this, because there are dealers that fall into this category as well. They know they're going to come to a show and spend 5 to 8 hours there. And if you're walking the show, for the most part, out of the 700 tables at this show, you're only going to see 10 or 15 that have the stuff that you want. But you need to look at everything just in case.
Yeah.
And by about the 15th or 20th table of ultra modern shiny stuff that you see, you start getting grumpy and complaining. Can't tell you how many of these guys come by and go, ugh, just more of this new junk wax.
Yeah.
Don't you have any old stuff? Well, I've got this. I'm only looking for Mantle.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm not your guy.
Yeah.
No worries. And the same thing happens on the dealer side that falls into this. These guys get super angry that they're not selling as much as the guys around them with the ultra shiny stuff. I've had dealers that I've never seen before in my life literally leave their table, walk over to mine, and start yelling at me because I'm selling more than they are. Don't you know this stuff is just junk? It's just not going to be worth anything. Man, I don't know your name. What's going on? What's happening here? You're not looking to buy anything. You're set up right there, right? Like, what's happening? So when you're dealing with that perspective, if you're one of these guys that collects vintage only and you're walking a show, understand that it's a very niche market and not very many people at a show is that what they're looking for. So dealers aren't always bringing just that stuff out.
And I know that we're going to get responses to this video of like, there's tons of vintage in my show. We get, this, that, and vintage is still great. The vintage market is hot. Yes, it is.
Yep. No question.
Graded vintage is still it still flies. It is still super liquid with the right names, but it is harder to get. It is more scarce. So at a 700 table show, it is not likely that 700 tables have the most scarce, oldest stuff out there.
Yeah.
Pretty easy to do the math on this. There are also people that are vintage heavy buyers but can appreciate the newer stuff. Some of our best repeat customers that we have relationships with, they favor the vintage stuff, but they're also aware of the new market and the trends with that.
And they're also not grumpy.
Yeah, not every... Now, I can understand that frustration if that's what we're looking for. One thing that's helped me a lot when vintage buyers walk up is I usually have one smaller showcase that has some vintage stuff. Other than 1 or 2 cards, there's not anything big. But when I can get it right, I will. But a lot of like clean, raw, late 60s, early 70s stuff that I'm able to find at a regular basis. But just taking the time to talk about what you like about a set of a card that they're looking at and showing interest in their space in the market is just as important if you're a dealer as when somebody walks up talking about Uptowns and do you think they're going to hold value?
Yeah.
Like if you're a dealer, you need to care. It's not that you need to be an everything seller to everyone, but that perspective is going to be valuable. Have a little bit of an understanding. If you don't know what they're talking about with a vintage card, ask them to educate you on it. Maybe they roll their eyes and walk off. Maybe you learn something new. But I've had more times than not, people have that demeanor. I just start talking vintage from what I understand with them, what I like. What about a certain set is tough to get? Is this high number really impossible? And all of a sudden, they kind of disarm. And there have been many times I end up selling a big bundle of vintage out of that conversation. But yeah. So vintage, old timey. What do we got next? Oh,
content first. And so let me preface this by saying, yes, we are content creators.
We're a content brand.
Yeah. However, we are not the guys who have a cameraman following them around at shows. We're actually set up at shows, and we don't have a cameraman behind the table capturing our deals.
Yeah, we might have a cameraman
at some point,
yeah,
but like
it's not
our focus. And we actually tried to do that a little bit, and it just didn't work for us.
We don't like it.
We don't like it. It feels like it's too much. It feels too in your face and too produced. And we don't want our customers to feel like, there's a show being put on. But again, the content first guys, you'll see them walk around the show. They'll either have, and not all content guys are bad.
Yeah, we're being really negative here.
Yeah, I don't mean to be negative. There's some really good content out there. And a lot of really good educational content. One of the smaller channels I'll give a shout out to, I think does a really good job with this, is Triple Crown. If you see Triple Crown walking around a show, he doesn't have a cameraman. He just has a GoPro strapped on his chest. He has it pointed down at the card tables. He does not film people's faces. He just films cards and talks about his experience at the show. Does a really good job. So check him out on YouTube.
But I'm going to back because I do think you're being negative a little. I know where you're coming from, but I want to clarify.
Yes, please.
If you're somebody that has been a dealer for more than a couple years and you're annoyed by the content first, I'd ask you to also consider, why do you think it is all of a sudden after this market correction that happened in the last couple of years, our card shows are packed again?
Yes.
Do you think people are just stumbling randomly into an LCS and saying, I'm going to get into cards today? Or is it probable that someone that they saw on YouTube making a deal at a show, even if they are getting a sweetheart deal for being popular in the space, has actually evangelized and grown the hobby?
Yes.
I think that's happening, and I think that's a good thing. And I think this is how kids are being introduced into the hobby.
Yeah.
So it is valuable and important. We need people to speak to issues. We took a lot of heat for speaking out against something we thought was wrong in the last week, something that a business is doing and having a track record of poor customer service. But again, the content first person is focused primarily on content. If their audience is large enough, it may be their mainstream of revenue. So they do buy at 95% and they sell at 95% and they still come out ahead, or they buy at 50% because they're popular and it's kind of criminal, and sell at 130%.
Yeah.
But content first is a type of personality. There's nothing wrong with that. Everybody's got a lane.
And again, like Jason said, that's a very good point. It's beneficial to the hobby for more eyes to be on the hobby. There are good content creators. There are bad content creators. There are people out there who do content as their main source of income. There are people who do content so that they can sell their grift. At the end of the day, though, from a perspective standpoint, if you see somebody being followed around with a camera at a show, understand that what they're trying to do is create good content. If you can help them create good content, they're probably going to help you by giving you money, right? So that's the perspective you want to come into. I have been known to be cranky with content creators in the past.
You're known to be cranky in general.
Yeah, I have known to be a little annoyed at times. I have shifted my perspective on that in a lot of ways. One of the biggest is, like Jason just said, I've seen just how much good it has brought overall to the hobby. Are there people out there who make just awful content? Yes, you've heard us talk about them. I'm not a Jeff Wilson fan. I'm not an Eric Michael fan. There are guys that I just loathe with how they do what they do. But in general, even the people that I loathe, they're still getting people to come to shows.
Yep.
And at the end of the day, if they're driving traffic that helps me pay my bills,
well, and not just that, just the interest in the hobby existing.
Well, but that's the thing.
10, 15 years,
but that help. That's helpful to those of us who do this as a living.
Sure.
So yeah,
and all of these feed each other, right? Like you need exposure of a dealer at a show. There may be somebody out there who's been an honest, quiet, soft-spoken dealer for a long time, and a content creator stumbles onto their showcase. They find out that they're awesome. They have really unique things, and it helps their business. And I think that's a great thing. That's a net positive. Up next, we've got the collector flipping to keep collecting. Okay, now this is a very important differentiator here. So we have the people that are just flipping. We have people that are just collecting. And then we have this segment, which way more of you fall in than you realize.
I'd say it's 40 to 50%.
Yeah, 40 to 50% probably of they are flipping only to be able to afford collecting. Why is that? Let's just call this what it is. Nobody wants to say it, but this is an expensive hobby.
You're damn right.
If you want to be into this, now you don't have to open wax. You don't have to spend hundreds of dollars. You can absolutely set build. And if you like low end, I've got an eBay store for you. But the majority of people that are in this hobby extensively have found that it's expensive. Not everybody has the same disposable income. There are people that simply can't afford breaks. They can't afford repacks. They can't afford the risk to open a lot of new wax. But they buy singles, they flip singles, and they sell those to maintain their collection. If tomorrow they could not set up at a show, they would still be okay. They would not be dependent on the sales of that. They would just buy less cards. This is not the same as a dealer who is constantly thinking about, as soon as this showcase is wiped out, I have to reload everything. I have to keep the engine fed. I have to keep the eBay metrics up. I have to get the shipping out tomorrow. I have to do X on the show to break even. I have to promote this. So there's all those other things. The person that is flipping just to keep collecting is just focusing on, I really want to open a Bowman Jumbo since it just released, and I need to sell off X amount of dollars of stuff. Let's go dig through the box and see what we have and see if I can move it this week at a show.
Yeah.
They'll set up at tables. There's nothing wrong. Again, all of these are fine. There's nothing wrong with it. But the majority of people that say, I'm a dealer now, I'm in a business, are simply collecting what they have to afford the hobby. And there's no shame in that, but it's a different set of expectations. These people have a tendency to be a little bit emotionally attached to some things at the table.
Yeah.
That's why you'll go up and you'll make an offer on something and say, yeah, no problem. And then you offer an even stronger percentage on something else, and you can tell there's an emotional attachment. It's like, I'd really rather sell the rest of the table before this card. So I'm going to hold at 120% of comps on that. What else do you have on that one?
No, you kind of nailed it. There's not a whole lot more to add there. Again, from understanding that person's perspective, it kind of goes back to a little bit of a combination of what they do with the pure collector. You're going to have the most success buying things from them that they're not emotionally attached to, and you're going to have the most success selling to them the things that they do collect. The one thing about this profile that always baffles my mind is the tendency to sell really nice stuff and then take that money and walk 4 tables down to the guy who has all the wax and rip all the wax and lose 80% of the money on the stuff they just sold. But which, if they have fun doing it,
that's why I would say collector first, right?
Yeah.
It's like, and there's nothing wrong with that.
No, not at all.
But you'll see more of that type of stuff happen with that profile, for sure. Up next, breaker only.
Do this because I don't know what you mean by this.
Okay, this is one of my favorite categories to come walking up to my table. These are people who they were introduced to the hobby through breaking, or they stumbled onto it, and from now on, the rush of hitting a big card is their thing. They spend all of their hobby cash on breaks. They hit cards. Whatever they hit is their inventory for a show, or what they're going to sell on Facebook, or what they're going to set up a table at a show for. But they really exclusively enter breaks and then just sell whatever they get on that. Again, nothing wrong with that. This is something that if you're really doing that in a way where you're mitigating risks, you probably have a lot of disposable income to do this with. Nothing wrong with that. just going with the expectations of I'm probably not going to hit anything, but if I hit a big card, how fun is that going to be? A lot of times these people will walk up to your table if you're a dealer and say, hey, do you want to buy this? And they have 50 hits of the most recent product. And, it could be something like Illusions, or a product that is not maybe like a top tier or staple, but they have a bunch of hits. I said, did you rip a lot of this? Oh, I was in a break, this and that. If you're a dealer, a lot of times they will sell you at a more aggressive margin for you just because they're looking forward to the next break. They're not even trying to buy any singles today. They just want to sell off what they have so they can maybe
stick it in the bank and go buy the stuff. Yeah.
Go buy the stuff again. I will say this. There was a little bit of buzz around this idea of it being a business model for people during COVID. And when retail products in the big three sports were selling, like a blaster was selling at 3x its retail value, there were a lot of people that were hitting cards and making money. They couldn't believe it. It was happening. There was a window of time until the manufacturers realized, oh, we just need to charge more for the boxes.
Yeah.
Or, there's not always going to be the same rookie class. And when that started to change, Gary and I noticed something. The people that were set up as dealers that primarily break and just set out brand new inventory, they would get bought out by noon at probably 50 to 65% of comps.
Yep.
Because they wanted to break again. And you'd see them for about 3 to 6 months, and then they never set up again. And that's just because that's not a model that is set up for success.
Not long term.
There's just no way mathematically for it to happen.
Kind of like buying at 5% margins. Yeah. It's not.
If you want to know if you have a friend that's a breaker only friend, they will message you the second they get a hit, but they'll have a week or two of silence in between.
Right.
Because they want you to think, this is it. This is so easy. The buddy I went to high school with started messaging me in the last 6 months where he was getting into some breaks, and he had some really nice stuff. I think he was in TikTok doing repacks. Okay. Be careful out there. But he hit a few big cards in a row, and I was just like, hey, that's awesome. Be careful. That's awesome. Be careful. And at one point he was like, I think I'm back to almost even. And I really haven't heard much since then. I hope he's doing okay. Or maybe he started realizing, hey, maybe I should just go buy the card I want.
Right.
Rather than overpaying. But that's definitely someone that's in there. Now, breaker only, they may have a better depth of knowledge of recent products than you or I do at times.
Sometimes, sure.
They really have watched several case breaks. They've been a part of them. They see how rare some of these are. They may be smart enough to say, yeah, I've been seeing a lot of those uptowns. I'm not sure those are as rare as people are saying. They have a good pulse on the market, what's new, and if a product sucks. So there's a huge advantage in, having somebody in the hobby that breaks heavily and that will share that information with you for sure. What do we got next? I'll let you jump in because there's kind of two sides of that coin.
Yeah, I mean, some of the things that you're talking about that we have here, I wanted to hear your perspective because I wasn't sure exactly what you meant when we put this stuff together. The next thing we have is the repack space, and it's very kind of related to that. I'm going to talk about it from the repack buyer's standpoint because a lot of my customers that spend really
larger
close
figures,
to six figures a year with me are people who have repack companies or who are buyers for repack companies. Repack buyers fall into two categories. You have the actual repack owners who own the companies, whether that's Backyard Breaks with their flamethrowers and all their different things, whether that is We the Hobby, and they are kind of at the top of the pyramid if you think about it as a pyramid. And if the actual owner comes to your table, they're going to pay you at the highest percentage that they pay.
Yep.
Right? I've got 2 or 3 people that fall in that category for me. And then underneath them, they have people that they send out because they can't go to every show. And you think we stress about having to buy stuff every week?
Oh, man.
These people are spending $500,000, $1 million, $2 million a week to keep their repacks flowing. If they can't go to every show. So then they have people underneath them that they send out. Now, these are not employees, okay? And this is really important. These people aren't getting paid by the hour. They're going to get paid, say that repacker pays 95%, okay? And if the main guy comes to your table, he's going to pay you 95%. His buyers, he tells them he's going to pay them 95%. So what's their goal? To buy it less than 95%, right? And as low as they can possibly go from 95%. There's even a third layer where those people sometimes will then say, hey, I'm going to pay you 88%, and they'll send them out. And those people end up going to the really small shows, the ones with 15, 20, 30 tables. So understanding that how that works is really important, and understanding who you're dealing with in that pyramid is really important. If you're dealing with the head honcho, you can say, hey, 95%. A couple of these guys, I literally will just send pictures to. One of my guys didn't end up coming to Xenia, but I just sent a bunch of stuff with Jason this last weekend with Post-its on them. Hey, here's comp. Here's the price. Go. If he had shown up, he would have just taken the bag. Know who you're dealing with in that process and understand what their goal is. Understand what their repacks are. Understand what they're looking for at any given time, because it changes. Sometimes these guys are buying $1,000 to $5,000 cards, and that's what they're looking for, and that's all they're looking for. Sometimes they're buying $25 to $75 cards. It depends on what they need for their inventory at any given time. And then
there are some common themes though with what they're looking
for.
Sure,
they're always going to be looking for case hits. They're your best avenue to sell case hits to at the highest percentage that you can. They're always.
I'm gonna pause you too, because I think I want to interject one thing that you're saying. I think that a lot of people newer to the hobby that comment expecting to sell at 95% have probably been introduced to selling through repackers that came through their show and bought.
Yeah,
and like, this guy comes through and spends X amount of dollars every week. I'm set up here. But then I have these other low ballers, which is like 70 to 90% of the people buying, that are going to come in at like 70 to 80% on an offer to start the negotiation. So one thing that we think is really important with the repackers, you can't waste their time. They have so much to do in the show. Have your number, be ready. The ones that you build a relationship with, all they need to see is that you can establish that they both agree on the comp, and then what can you do for them. That is the only type of buyer when they say, what's your best on that? I know that they're not wasting my time. They're not lowballing me. I'll just throw that number out and we just move on to the next card, onto the next card, onto the next card.
Yep.
Sorry for the interruption.
No, that's okay. It's a very good point. And within that context, again, understanding who in that pyramid you're dealing with really, really matters. To your point of people not wanting to sell things, case hits at less than 95% because they know repackers pay 95%. I will say this to you people, okay? And listen to me very closely. Yes, the top tier of the pyramid will pay you 95%. Mm-hmm. Here's the question you have to ask yourself. It's a really important question. Do you know the top tier of the pyramid? Do you know who owns that breaking company? Do you have the relationship with that person? Because if you don't, guess what? They're not buying from you at 95%. The next level of the pyramid down's coming, and they're going to try to buy at 87%. And if you don't know that level of the pyramid, you're going to get the next level of the pyramid down, where they're trying to buy those case hits at 80%, 82%. Relationships matter. And when you see these guys on content creation paying 95% for these things, that's awesome. Do you know them? Do they come to your show? Because if they don't, you're not getting that.
No.
You know what I mean? Like, it's an important point.
And there's a value in each of these roles. As we finish up this last one, I think we'll go through and just kind of highlight something that they're all dependent on each other. Like, even the repack space. I know we give it a lot of criticism, and I was in the live, people were trying to argue with me. I am fine with a repack that says, here's the floor, here's the ceiling, here's the checklist.
If it's real.
If it's a real checklist of not just like, hey, we have a case hit in here, it's probably worth about this. Hit Parade's the one I hit the Ernie Banks rookie out of.
Don't tell me it's a $20 floor and it's a $5 card I get.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, I think you could get this out of it. There are some that will literally give you a complete checklist. That would be the safest bet. Not everybody is taking the time to do that. I do think that's where repacks are heading.
You'll get a lot of the case hit checklists. Yeah. Like, this is the big card. Like,
now, if I'm just watching something get opened up to see a lot of cool hits, a high end repack break is really fun to watch.
Go watch We the Hobby. You'll see some stuff.
Yep. You'll see a lot of stuff in there. And then what I like to do is I have card ladder up, and this is kind of nerdy, but I just kind of like to see where these cards are comping, because if this stuff walks up to the table, which more of it's happening now that there's more repack product out there, I want to be familiar not just with this person's optic rookie, but with this rare of 7 or of 10 or whatever in this one format that only came out with this product. It's a great way to educate yourself on some of the more rare stuff.
It's really important to note with all of this stuff, there are negatives and lots of positives for all of it. Repacks aren't a bad thing.
No.
Can they be? Yes. Can they be something where unscrupulous people take advantage of people who don't know better?
Yeah.
Absolutely. And it sucks. And we see it too much. But on the flip side of that, they also can be a really good way to mitigate risk if you want to rip product.
They support the dealers tremendously. They give people opportunities to hit cards that they wouldn't hit in wax.
Yeah.
They bring a lot of stuff into the market that may have been back in rows or in a showcase nobody would find. There is a great benefit to the hobby for that repack product being there. It is one that's really easy to grift on people with, so we just give that word of caution. But those of you that are into repacks, keep doing your thing.
Yeah.
Don't spend money you don't have to spend on it, just like anything else.
Exactly.
But that would be one of them. The final category is the wax-only people, which are super important. You hear us really critical about wax prices and getting a value and this and that. We can't turn off the dealer filter. Like that's not something that we can turn off. We can remember before we were dealing and the joy of just opening a card, cards just because. And there are still products that we do open.
Back when I could buy cases of Bowman for $600 for jumbos.
Right. Those were the days.
2016.
Yep. So, but if there aren't people constantly opening wax, there is not a dealer with a showcase full of stuff. There are not repacks out there. People have to rip open the product for it to be available in the market. It is super essential. There are people that set up at shows. A lot of times it's the more small shows, and you can see that they've just been opening boxes. They sell their low-end stuff on the table until they have enough money to go buy a hobby box at the table next. Then they rip it open while they're sitting in there and pack up all their stuff and leave. Nothing wrong with that. People need to rip wax for people to be able to buy wax and sell wax for singles market. So super important. Wax first people, I would say the caveat with them is if they only rip stuff and then sell only what they rip, they do have a tendency to only pay attention to comps right when a product is released and expect the value to be higher than it is. It may be a product from 6 months ago and they're expecting it to be that release week price, and they're devastated when they see how much the product is falling, yet they keep opening wax.
Yeah.
And so that's something to consider. So I'll just kind of run through the list. Wax only, we don't have anything to sell if wax only collectors and sellers are not ripping wax. The repack space keeps a lot of dealers in business, keeps money moving through the markets at an accelerated rate we've never seen. Breaker only. If you want to be introduced to new products and the new product hits, that's what's walking up to the tables and in bulk, and we need them, right? Breakers have provided a way for people to pay a fraction of the price. There are ethical breakers out there that just have a margin that they expect.
Absolutely.
When they break, it's reasonable. They're making money, and you have a chance to get a portion of a box or case. Collector flipping to keep collecting. They move a lot of stuff into the market at a price that people can't afford, and they prop up the PC market for unique players and their value. Super essential. Content first are probably growing the hobby faster than anybody else right now. Vintage only collector. They are keeping important the tradition of the hobby. I know that sounds nerdy, but it matters. It matters that you understand the history of the hobby and keeping vintage alive.
Every show needs a few grumpy guys.
That's right. The non-collector flipper. That's a tougher one for me. What positive can we pull out of that? There's got to be something.
Again, it kind of goes back to the
dollars,
to like moving dollars through the hobby. At the end of the day, where a non-collector flipper comes into play for me is if they're willing to buy stuff I've been sitting on for a while. Cool.
The pure collector.
They're my favorite. They're the rarest.
The purest part of the hobby.
Yeah, and I love it because when they come up to your table, when they go to buy something, the first thing that they do is not lowball you.
And they appreciate it.
Yeah, they're looking for a card, not for a deal.
Yeah. And the dealer is making sure that there is constantly fresh inventory out and available for you, the collector, because nothing that we love more, even all of us love walking into a show, walking past that showcase, and holy crap, there it is, the card that you've been looking for. And it's been 10 years. It hasn't even been on eBay. It hasn't made it on eBay. There's not even a sale on Card Ladder. It's nowhere to be found, and it's right in front of me. And this is why I'm on the hunt for a card.
And none of these people, none of these profiles can exist without the others. It is an interconnected ecosystem.
Yeah, mutually beneficial. All right. Low end liquid. I know we're over an hour here, so I want to get to it. Low end liquid. This is a cool little subset. This is the 1973 Kellogg's Pro Stars. I'm holding 3 cards up because I think I have 3 to 5 left, and I started with over 50 of these 2 months ago in a collection I bought where this was in a binder. I averaged out to under 20 cents per card by buying so many in bulk, but these have been selling like hotcakes. I'll remind you, if you don't know, when it comes to vintage and junk wax, yes, junk wax, when you look at these Kellogg's, Post, Purina, what are some of the other ones out there?
KB
Toys, cereal box cutouts. They are
Kmart sets.
Short print. They are shorter print. And vintage collectors know there's not as many of these out there as there are of the 73 tops. Are they impossible to find? No. Are they super valuable? But there's a lot of these that'll fetch $3 to $10. I've had several of them sell for 15 to 20 because the major stars are on there. Pete Rose just sold this week for me for $30.
Well, Pete Rose that documentary just dropped on Netflix.
That's not going to hurt anything either. But that's the set that I would look for. These are going to be a little harder to find, but I think this is a set that a lot of people will be like, all right, is this, it's licensed, it has the logo, but what product is this? If you can get these on the cheap, I would definitely grab them. They've sold really quickly for me, and a really good multiplier. I think even $1 a card, if it's got stars in it, you're not going to go wrong. You'll be able to make plenty of money. So that's the low-end liquid for this week, the 73 Kellogg set. Now, going into the 80s, there are more of these. There's holograms that they ran, I think, late 70s into the early 80s, mid 80s, and those still sell well too. When you get like closer to 90,
the lenticulars, like the first Sport Flicks type stuff.
Yeah, when you get into the 90s, some of them will be a little bit slower sell and definitely a lower price point. But I'd be on the lookout for these. 73 Kellogg's. It's so weird to me when I do a segment about this because I still can't believe that this stuff sells like it does, but it is what it is.
Awesome. All right, last but not least, the Lookout. Now, I'm going to take a minute here before I talk about this week's guy to give myself a little one of these. Because I think I'm batting right at about 800 on my picks of guys that are going to be getting called up quickly.
I'm not going to give you a compliment.
You don't have to. Tim Elko got called up last week. He's already got a couple of dingers.
Yep.
His card prices have jumped about 70%. So, if you're listening, maybe keep that in mind that, I've got a pretty good track record so far.
Yeah,
that could
Davis
change
Mills
in a heartbeat.
was also a pick.
Yeah, that's true. But we're talking about baseball right
Yeah, but
now.
I'm never going to let you live that down.
You won't let me live that down. That's fine. It's okay. This week on the Lookout, we're going to talk about a pitcher in the Milwaukee Brewers system by the name of Jacob Misiorowski. If you follow prospecting...
That's the most Milwaukee name I've ever heard.
Well, and he's also one of the most Milwaukee pitchers you're ever going to see. They have a specific profile that they look for. Jacob Misiorowski, if you follow prospecting at all, he's a name that you will know. He's in AAA, and he's never had a question about his stuff. The stuff is absolutely electric and filthy, and he's got a real funky delivery. He's 6'7". The ball releases a lot closer to the plate than for a lot of guys. Has insane amounts of induced vertical break. And just filthy stuff. He's got a 70 grade fastball, a 70 grade just absolute wipe out slider. So far this year, he has thrown the fastest pitch in professional baseball, 102.3. Most of the guys clocking over 100 consistently are either relievers or Paul Skeens. Misiorowski's a starter. Now, here has been the knock on Misiorowski his whole career. The stuff nobody questions. Command has been sketchy. And sketchy might be a compliment. Like that might be overselling the command. However, something seems to have clicked this year. And the command is no longer an issue. Like he had 40 to 4. MLB Pipeline had him at 45 grade on his command. I thought that was too much coming into this year. I thought it was borderline 30. Like borderline like he can only be a reliever. So far this year in the film that I've seen and the numbers that I'm seeing on StatCast and Pitching Ninja, he's more like a 55 grade command. Something has clicked, and he's getting massive amounts of in-zone whiff. So far this year, he's 3-0 with a 1.49 ERA, and more importantly, an 0.92 whip. Anything under 1 on whip is elite. And if you don't know what whip is, that's walks plus hits per inning pitched, WHIP. If you are under 1 for that, that is elite. He's 23 years old. His first Bowmans are in 2022 Bowman draft. He is 6'7". Go watch him throw the ball. He's got a 5-pitch mix, 270 grade pitches, 255 grade pitches. That is frontline starter stuff if the command stays in place where it is right now. If that command stays where it is, he's a number 1 or 2 starter in the bigs. He's going to mess with people. He's a righty, so you're not going to get that little extra lefty boost that some of these guys get. But the arm angle, the slot that he delivers the ball from, and his length in general coming down the mound makes that 102 pitch look like it's coming about 105, which is Ben Joyce level stuff. Jacob Mizorowski, 2022 Bowman draft. His prices are down from where they were at this time last year, which I think is criminal. I do think he will be up sooner than later for the Milwaukee Brewers.
All right.
That was the lookout for this week.
Quick reminder, we are live tonight and every Thursday night at 7 p.m. on Whatnot. Be sure to give it a follow, bookmark it at the Ballcard Show. We will drop an episode every week on Thursday. Thank you to all the new viewers joining in. You may have found us TikTok, Instagram, wherever, but we appreciate you being a part of this. We'd love to hear what you think of the show, questions that you may have, concerns. If you want to argue with us, please boost the algorithm. We appreciate it.
Like and subscribe.
Like and subscribe. This has been the Ballcard Show, the sports podcast.
For the Sports Collective.
Will you let me finish it? Let me try it one more time.
God dang it.
You interrupted. You're so excited. Ron Burgundy reads whatever is on the teleprompter.
That's right.
Ready? This has been the Ballcard Show, the sports podcast.
For the Sports Collective.
See how that works where they can hear? Bye now.
Peace.